I will start by saying that the assumption here is that our failure is because of the institution itself. That's, we have framed this debate to sort of libel presidentialism, saying that it failed, not that the practice of it failed. So there are three, I'll start with three realisms. First is that institutions matter, and Chinda is correct. Structure matters. Again, institutions matter not in the ideal form, but in their real form, how you practice them. There's a difference between an institution defined and institution in practice. So even though scholars say that presidentialism clearly less costly, in terms of empirics, greater GDP growth, as people operate parliamentary system have greater GDP growth than presidential system. But if you look across the world, you see that we have hybridization. So Israel, South Africa, they are parliamentary presidential. So we should bear that in mind. There are few totally ideal parliamentary and presidential system, maybe the US and the UK. France is a mixture. Germany is a mixture. So we shouldn't run away with the idealism that presidential system, parliamentary has failed. Now back to the point you raised, which is very important. Now, how do we choose systems? Power is at the heart of institutional change or not, meaning that those who benefit by an institution will have less incentive to change those institutions. But power is not uniform. That means, like I think the keynote speaker made a very important point. There are dimensions of power. And the new thinking is what they call end of power. People like Moses Naiye, okay? What does that mean is that power is no longer hierarchical. We don't talk in terms of government, we talk about governance. We talk about network, we talk about influence. So this kind of conversation can create narratives, number one, that are powerful. Can also create narratives that show win-win. So politicians who probably are wedded to presidentialism and the power it gives will see that parliamentary system actually does not hurt them as much as they think. So there's this idea of why should we change the system if we are beneficial? But if you show that this system actually is not benefiting you as much as you think, you shift the investment of resources and time to protecting that system to allow it change. But ultimately, I think that is what I call social virality, meaning that changes come when it gets to maybe epidemic level. Social change trends get to a point of tipping point where the conversation becomes very hot, empowering, constraining and threatening to people in power. Will this conversation get to a point where the National Assembly members, the presidents, everybody involved will think a second time and say, okay, why don't we transition to a different kind of system, even if it's not wholly presidential? What will determine it is whether the promoters of this system are able to embed it in social realism. The people see it as their project. It becomes part of town hall conversation. The religious leaders who are powerful sign on. Social actors who are leaders sign on. So in a sense, it becomes organic. And if you look at the US constitutional change, I heard a lot about the US Constitution. If you look at the history of the US Constitution, the difference is the US Constitution was states ceding power to federal. Our question is federal creating states. And so that's why the US presidential system has inbuilt structural control. Because it wasn't a case of federal government legislating, power, giving power to states. It was the states that evolved and gave power. And that's what the Constitution says, powers not enumerated are reserved for the people. And so if you flip, and I think the professor from University of Benin said that point, but the difference here is that the US system also was organic. It evolved over a struggle period of time. And that gets to the issue of adaptation. You can adapt systems. Yes, we need to adapt. But the key thing about choice of model to choose is what's overriding state-society model. The Nigerian state was a feudal, neo-feudal state. And it created the constitution in a manner that preserved those unaccountable centers of power, because the Nigerian elites really never wanted to democratize. So we are take democracy as a structure, but the organizing principle of egalitarianism, of openness, of accountability is absent in our social-cultural framing. And so it leads to how we choose what model, what we choose for the constitutional framework. So
the only consensus I can get is this, that what we have on ground is just not good enough for us. That what we have on ground is not just good enough for us, and that we cannot continue to simply accept it as such, as if that is the best that we can get. Because my problem, or the problem of many of us, is that when things are not going well, those who are in authority tell us that that is the best we can get. Or that they cannot be better. We must recognize that governance is difficult. We are out there, we don't understand what they have. But from this consensus, we are realizing that we are not getting the best. The emphasis seems to be on the legislature during this discussion so far. And that is why the debate is on what kind of parliament do we want? Do we want a parliamentary system or a presidential system? But it's still focusing on parliament. But I would rather wish we should also expand the discussion to all the three arms of the government, namely the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And whatever we say of the legislature should be also applicable to the other two branches of government. And if all are not taken together, you cannot move forward simply by juggling around with what kind of parliament we will have. So I'm not too much worried what kind of parliament. I'm rather worried what kind of government we have. And I believe that it is already said by the previous panel, the main purpose of government is the good of the people, and their safety, their security, and their prosperity. If that is not there, all arms of government must take responsibility for it. The question this gathering should be asking, how do we move away from where we are now? There must be some reason why we are not moving beyond where we are now. As a religious leader, I look at what is happening, and I am more interested not so much in the structures, what kind of structures we have in government. I'm more interested now in the people who are running government, and what is it that is moving them when they do things. And so I want us to distinguish between the structures and the spirit. To some extent, you can say it doesn't matter what kind of structure you have, because there are many kinds of democracies. Incidentally, there are many types of government, not only democracy. We seem to think that the only type of government you need is a democracy. But there are governments that are not democratic and that are performing well. So we may want to extend our discussion in that direction. I'm not sure if we have the courage to do so. But generally, it is said today that the best form of government is democracy. And we have opted for that. So if we have opted for that, we must do it well. And that is where me and our sheikh there comes in. I ask myself, because every now and again, religion keeps coming up in the discussion. What has been the role of religious leaders in this whole picture? Or to put it differently, if our system is running badly, what is the position of religious communities and leaders in this mess in which we are? Have we been part of the problem, or have we been part of the solution? Obviously, I will hope we will be part of the solution, because that is what I believe religion should be.